Vandy and South Carolina kick off a series that had some major implications early in the year. A lot has changed. We cross it over.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome into this edition of the Locked On College Crossover. Joining me is Chris Muller from Locked On Gamecocks. I'm Corey Burton, Locked On Vandy. We're going to we're going to do a little bit of general football talk because, it's that time of year. We like to do some football talk, but we're going to start in the world of baseball. Two teams that had really high expectations coming into the season. Neither of our teams, Chris, have lived up to the expectation. Y'all had a midseason firing. Our fans are contemplating one of those.
Yeah.
It's not really going to happen, but it's brutal for both of our teams. But for South Carolina, what's been the biggest story? Like what went off the rails here?
The program.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. It's like, it's tough because I think the Maneri thing was so bad. I don't think anybody could have been prepared for the depths that he was going to take the program. I think it also coincided with the fact that you brought in Oklahoma and Texas. One of those is a very premier program. Oklahoma is also like a very weird team. It's like they're good, but are they good? But they're also still very much better than South Carolina this year. And I think the thing that's frustrating is there was plenty of people that thought he should have been fired a year ago, including myself. Mm-hmm. For me, it was based on what he said on the field or after some of the games about like, well, I just didn't know that the SEC was going to be this deep and talented. And it was like, I've told this story before.
Yeah,
like the website I work for, we had an interview with him a month before this, and it was unrelated. It was about LSU. It was an LSU angle because obviously he used to coach there. And he said when it just at length was like, the SEC's always been great. We all know, that was never going to be the case even when I came back. And it's like, so now you're kind of talking about both sides of your mouth. But they gave him more money and they gave him more resources, and he went to the portal and had the fourth best class, signed 25 guys. But like the fact that you've had some good pitching at times. You lost Jake McCoy to start the year, which sucked. But there's not a single hitter on this team hitting over 275. They have as a team batting average, they're hitting 239 on the year. And they just flat out, they just don't do anything super great. And it's really showed. I think at one point you kind of thought they were going to turn the corner, but that has not happened. It's just, I will be very excited for the next chapter of South Carolina baseball when the season's over.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Vanderbilt, the postseason hopes are hanging on by the thinnest of threads.
Man,
it's you sweep South Carolina, you have a chance. Then you have to make a run in Hoover, which Vandy typically plays well in Hoover. So it's that Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance, right? And so that's kind of leaving Vandy fans clinging on to that last ray of hope. But let's be honest about this, that what is completely unraveled for Vanderbilt is the pitching staff. Between injuries and lack of development and, inconsistent usage where you either pull your ace starter too soon or you leave in a bullpen guy too late, and it just unravels from there. And the bullpen's fallen apart countless times throughout the course of the season. And it's just, the bats can't keep up. And it just goes downhill. And that's kind of where Tim Corbin has kind of lost his grip on this season. Now, I don't think he's going to be fired, and I don't think he should be fired. But I think if there's no major –
if he's fired, I hope he is in Columbia, South Carolina next year. So I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure any program out there would be knocking down their doors to get him. But I think for him, if there are no significant changes and he proves that he's going to be stubborn, now maybe he's in the crosshairs next season.
Yeah.
But I would expect, because he's made changes to the hitting coach twice in the last 2 seasons, he finally got it right with Jason Esposito. I think, pun intended, he hit a home run with that. And with the pitching staff, I think it's time to get new leadership there. And I think it's time also, because of all the injuries, I think you got to look in a different direction with your training programs.
Yeah. I think the training thing is frustrating because it's like that's one of the things that Maneri did incorrectly here at South Carolina was like he came in right away And one of the things he changed right off the bat was I think they went down from four days a week training, like weight training, to 2 days a week, which is just in the off season. And you're like, that's just I mean, if you were going for 6 days, maybe, but having him in there for only 2 days a week is mind blowing to me at this level. And so you kind of took away, a long-standing strength and conditioning coach that had worked with this program for a long time. That just not seemed to be a great move. The other part too is I think that like the injuries that Vandy's had this year have been very frustrating because it's like they've been all season. What's frustrating, I think, for Vanderbilt is like you look at a team like LSU. And even to like a degree with South Carolina, because it's like I don't think South Carolina was going to make a run after they got, especially if they got swept by LSU. It's like you kind of writing on the wall, it's over. Mm-hmm. But there's some games like the Arkansas game that KJ Scobie booted that one ball, and he's their best player. But it's like that sucks. And you look at that like, man, that could have been a win against Arkansas. Maybe that would have changed things. With Vandy, I'm not saying this to be rude to the fans. I love Tim Corbin. He recruited me like 24 years ago, which is insane. Yeah. But like, I don't see anything with Vanderbilt where it's like, oh man, what might have been if this would have gone their way. They got beat by Missouri, that just couldn't happen at this point in the season. No. And then, dude, think about this. If they had 3 straight walk-offs to sweep Tennessee, if that doesn't happen, I mean, where is that team? I mean, then maybe we are talking about some valid reasons to fire Tim Corbin because of the record. But yeah, I mean, just it's a brutal year. And I think what's so frustrating too for fans is like, I'm not a big proponent of in football, hey, this team or college football is better when this team is good. Yeah. I don't ever like think that that's a great way to phrase stuff, especially if it's Tennessee. When people say college football is better when Tennessee is good,
they're lying.
Makes you want to throw up because
they're lying. Yeah, they're lying. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, but this with college baseball, it's like I think college baseball is better when Vandy's good and South Carolina's good, and those teams are earning and competing for postseason spots and hosting regionals and stuff. And so for Carolina, it's not as shocking because you went through it last year, but for Vandy, this is just such uncharted territory for them, man. I hate to see it.
Yeah, I mean they've had such a nice run. They've 19 years in a row going to the postseason. They've got 2 College World Series titles under their belt in 14 and 19. They were the number 1 national seed last year.
Yeah,
got upset in the regional by Wright State, who by Zach Blackerby standards is not a state. But they just for some reason their bats went dormant, and that was the biggest problem last year. They fixed it. Now the pitching collapses. I think if they had last year's pitching and this year's hitting, I think they're a national seed again. But as rough as this season is, I think there are some bright spots that you can look at. You have the number 1 recruiting class as of right now, and if most of those guys can make it to campus, you're going to be in good shape. You have some bright spots where you had Texas on the ropes in a couple of games. You had Mississippi State on the verge of a sweep, and then you had some games. You had some series in there that you won that where you're like, okay, well, maybe this team has a little bit of signs of life. And if you watch our baseball squad shows, you can see the ebbs and flows of the season live through me. But it's just frustrating, but a lot of it's just fixable. You change the leadership and pitching, you get a Barton Simmons like GM that's going to handle you in NIL, and that just takes that off of Tim Corbin's plate and says, you know what, Tim, this is what needs to happen. I'm going to make it happen for you. We're going to go get some guys. And then, strength and conditioning, just revamp some of that stuff and have pitchers work out like pitchers and have hitters work out like hitters and take the injury risk out of it for those guys and have those programs that are customized to position groups. And then on top of that, individually, because, whatever they're doing is not working, but that's, again,
it's weird too, because it's one of those things where they've made, so many, I think, advancements and like efforts to to update their ballpark. And I know they moved like right field in and like, then they had a beer garden out there.
I think they're adding one.
I would love if South Carolina did something like that. Obviously, because like I was saying this, I was motioning this earlier. It's what's made the games tolerable at times is being able to drink through it. I think like what's crazy too, and this is something I've heard some people around South Carolina. I never thought about this because, I mean, dude, it's amazing going to some of these ballparks that are like I mean, it's minor league fields in college. I mean, they hold a ton of people. They are very modern. They look great. And I look at like South Carolina and Founders Park. I think Founders Park is one of the best ballparks in the country. But it's being talked about like it's behind the times of everywhere else in the SEC. So there are going to be upgrades there. And are you going to do that in a year where you go out and hire a new coach? And I do think too that it's like it's interesting what you said about Vandy, because I do think Vandy is going to be able to be in that situation where they can reload with how strong that they like. I mean, Tim Corbin, I can tell you firsthand, is just a hell of a recruiter, and like. Dude, having him and Eric Bakich on the same staff was a cheat code for such a long period of time. So I don't think that's going to slow down because he knows the game better than anybody. They put so many players in the pros. But I do think that it's interesting because I think one of the strengths for South Carolina right now, looking forward, since we're talking about like going to next year, I love the fact that they're in this situation where Jeremiah Donati, the AD, announced like, hey, man, listen, we are the premier job as of right now that's open. Like nowhere else that has like, I don't even know if there's another Power 4 job that's fired anybody yet, but they don't hold a candle to South Carolina. So
no, they don't.
That's one of those things too, where I think Vandy, if they fired Corbin, they would be able to, pick whoever they wanted to come replace him. I do not think they'll fire him. But it's one of those things too, where it's like, you do need some fresh air, just like something breathe some life into the program a little bit. And I think with Vandy, the fans being this passionate about it, it's a little misguided because it's like you're 19-1 getting to the postseason in 20 years. And I don't know if I've ever seen a rash of injuries like they've had.
It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. But we'll see what kind of happens. We'll see how the offseason unfolds for both of our teams. We're going to switch gears. And we're going to talk some football because LaNorris Sellers is, I think, had a struggle last year, but there's some changes for him that are going to be beneficial. And then, of course, the Jared Curtis era starts now. So we'll talk about all that next. It's a crossover. Speaking of revamps, your outdoor space should feel like you, and it's one of the spots that you keep meaning to fix up, but you never quite get around to. So if you want to revamp your backyard, Wayfair comes in. They make it easy to find pieces that match the vibe that you want. Like if you want to hang those lights outside on your back patio so that you can enjoy a nice beverage during the nighttime, go to Wayfair. It's easy to filter by style and budget so you can find exactly what fits your space. They have everything in one place, like seating, decor, lighting, and even outdoor rugs to go with it, and thousands of verified reviews so you feel confident in what you're getting. Now the space actually feels put together, somewhere you want to sit, relax, and spend time. So get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, that inbox that's overflowing. The one position you have to fill still sitting open. And when the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, all of that. And that's what they're looking for at South Carolina for the head coach, right, Chris?
That's right. They better be on that job site.
There you go. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. You have less stress, less time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show will get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. So just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about this. You heard about Indeed right here, either on Locked On Gamecocks or Locked On Vandy. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And lastly, I know I do it, you do it, and everyone out there does it.
Got that right.
But you look at your bank account and you think, where is all my money going? Takeout? Man, am I eating this much takeout? This is crazy. But you're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. Like I said, it tracks all those subscriptions in one spot, helps you cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending, and you can actually see where your money is going. and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clear picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy. Thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks part of your day. Thank you for making Locked On number one. Chris Marler of Locked On Gamecocks joins, and we're on this edition of a college crossover. We're going to talk a little football because one of the most interesting stories coming into 2026, obviously, aside from the Jared Curtis era starting and Vandy being able to flip a five-star recruit from Georgia, that's a story in and of itself. Go check out my latest episode on that. But it's LaNorris Sellers is an interesting story to me because he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. And I'm glad that, at least for the Vandy game, they were able to neutralize him a little bit. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt. But it was a tough year for him, and it was a tough year for South Carolina. And I think they made the right hire with Kendall Briles as offensive coordinator. This is going to be a fun year for the LaNorris, right?
I agree. And so I think that's one of the things too, is there's so many ways I keep looking at this in the offseason, especially where it's like, I'm so excited about what's happening because I think that the way that offense was run last year, there were just so many components where it's like, I don't think you necessarily had to build the entire thing around LaNorris Sellers' skill set. But I do think that if you're a offensive coordinator coming into your first year as like calling plays, at least for the first time at this level in a while, you would probably look at that skill set and say, how do we build around this? Like, how do we figure out what to do at building around this? Because you've got a guy that's being projected as a top, 10 pick in the draft by some and a first round pick by a lot. How do we open up the offense by letting him run? And so, that part of it, I think was interesting. I think the going into this year with Kendall Briles, I think they're going to be much better. I think letting the game kind of be fast enough and the offense, like the pace be fast enough to where it's like, you don't have to sit here and take into account so many different things before the snap or going through your reads or anything like that. You can just kind of go out there and ball. And then the other thing too, that I don't think enough people are talking about, and I think it might be a little bit similar to what's going on at Vandy, which is, I don't know how much money they gave Diego Pavia his last year there, but I do know with him leaving,
I think it was 2.5 million.
And then they were able to put that in with Jared Curtis. And for a lot of high school quarterbacks, I think from what I've seen, that's the highest that any quarterback was paid in last year's class, and almost the highest of any high school or player during that class, including Cantwell, the kid that went to Miami. And that's just where we've seen the way that people have, shout out to Rocket Money again, that have decided to divvy up their money between the portal and high school players. But the thing that I'm so high on with South Carolina is I think they're going to be really good this year, and I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis, but with the money they have promised and have currently allotted for LaNorris Sellers, Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor, and Jacarius Peak, by my own assumption and estimate, it's probably around $9 million, in my opinion, maybe 10. But that money is most likely going to come freed up after this season because they should all be gone to the next level. And if that happens, then you see what Vandy was able to do from Pavia to Curtis, which is, now that money's freed up, we can go back in and go directly in competition with some schools that we're not normally in competition for, like for South Carolina, like an A&M, LSU, like maybe Georgia. For Vanderbilt, it was clearly Georgia for Jared Curtis. And I think that the building blocks they can have in this year for future success, it's just a really, really big year that I hate to be biased. I feel very sure that they're going to be able to do that. And I think this is going to be, we're going to finally start seeing the years stacked together a little bit at South Carolina, whereas before it's been kind of one of these.
Yeah, because you can't, it seems like one thing breaks and you as you're fixing that, another thing breaks, and it's like you just can't seem to get your footing. Right. And then you have last year's debacle with Mike Shula. That was a disaster. But man, I South Carolina and Vandy do not play each other this year. Probably a good thing for Vandy. well, actually, no. Vandy's got a competitive roster too. I think that would be a fun
Yeah.
game if they did play each other. But from an outsider's perspective, I've been talking ad nauseum about Jared Curtis. I mean, that dude,
Yeah.
I saw him in practice and saw him in the spring game, and he looks different.
Mm-hmm.
He is different. But how does the outside world view him?
You know, I think it's different for South Carolina because they don't play Vandy this year. So it's like for a long time, right? I'm not wrong about that.
They don't.
Okay. It's like, dude,
correct.
I don't know if I'm on a bit of a delay, it seems like, and I didn't know if you were like giving me a look or if I was just behind. But no, I think that it's not a team that anyone has had to necessarily be prepared for most of the last 20 or 30 years. And then the credits of what Clark Lee has done. Now, for the first time, people have been like having to talk about him. I think there's a very real perception that they're going to go back to what they were before. I think that's going to happen this year. I think down the road, this is something they have found what works for them. And you could really look at Vandy like as like a Timu version of Indiana a little bit. And I that sounds like it's like an insult, but it's like they found a roster full of grown ass men that were 22 to 24 instead of 17 to 21 or 17, 18, 21. And they built the roster that way, and it worked. I mean, they took a lot of players from New Mexico State, brought them in there with Diego Pavia. So I think with Pavia being gone, I mean, that kid is a really big difference maker at the collegiate level. Mm-hmm. But Jared Curtis, from a talent standpoint, like now you've got, like, it's not just the fact that you've got Jared Curtis. He's going to struggle in year one because all freshman quarterbacks struggle in year one. Like Arch struggled at times in year 1 and 2. Yeah. But now you've got this ability where you went great players want to play with great players. And if you got the damn number 1 quarterback in the country coming in to Vanderbilt, and then you could also pitch a great education, you could pitch a fun team that people are rallying around. They've made all these improvements to the stadium. It's a lot easier to go pitch to transfer portal receivers and elite blue chip receivers out of high school to say, do you want to come play with a kid that's going to be here for 2 to 3 years and is like, the arm talent is different. Like the arm talent is just that's what stood out to me the most, because it's like, do I think, he's going to come out and throw 70% completion percentage and 30 touchdowns and 5 picks? No, it's very hard for me to fathom a freshman doing that in this conference. But do I think that he's going to come out there and be able to make some throws that are like,
it's going to get butts out of seats? Yeah,
right, and then build on the excitement. And so it's like, again, I think with Vandy, it's awesome. I know it's a very long-winded answer, but that's how I always am, and you know that. I try my best. But Vandy's like done this cool thing that not enough people are doing, which was they could have fired Clark Lee way earlier, and it would have been a huge mistake. But they stuck by him and was like, we see the vision, we see what he's building, and now you get to kind of have the fruits of that labor. And I think with getting a guy like this and the extension they gave him, obviously, but like, you bought yourself another 3 years of investment, like from the fan base that like is like you're fully in there, because like he has shown that he can recruit, he can coach, and he can go toe to toe with a lot. I mean, they were this close to making the playoff last year.
Yeah, and they were. I think they were within 6 points of Alabama in the fourth quarter before they let that one slip away, and then against Texas, they got their butts handed to them, and then made a furious comeback and just ran out of time. Almost recovered an onside kick that would have put that game. So
Corey, if they go up, if they go up 14-0 on Bama, they were up 7-0 and they were inside the 10-yard line when that fumble happened. If they go up 14-0 on Bama, I don't think that game goes the way it
doesn't. It doesn't, because I don't think Diego turns it over twice. I mean, Bama was +2 in turnover margin. That was what won them the game, and then they just grinded it out at the end and just steamrolled and just demoralized Vandy at that point. But I mean, 10-2, you're on the cusp. You have a Heisman finalist. I mean, you put up that, and Diego Pavia is not even the most talented quarterback that you've had in the last, as far as talent goes. I mean, the dude's a stud, generational competitor, but Jared Curtis is way more talented, and now you've got a much more loaded roster. Things could get interesting in Nashville, and I'm doing a bunch of schedule analysis stuff right now. So make sure you tune in for that if you want the deep and down details about those games and things like that. I'm going to continue to hammer out Vandy's schedule throughout the course of the spring and summer. But man, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And for Jared Curtis, the throw. you talked about wow throws, right? And the wow throw for me looked like probably the simplest pass breakup that you see just generally. But you go back and look at that throw. There was two. He was throwing to a tight end. It was about an 8-yard throw, 8 to 10-yard throw. But there was two defenders in front of the tight end, not beside him.
Yeah,
in front, and they were converging. So there was a window about the width of a piece of paper, seemed like.
Right.
And he threw it. And he got it through that window to the tight end. It was in the tight end dropped it because he didn't think in a million years it was going to get to him.
Right.
But it got through, and he was like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
He's like, "Whoa, this got
what
to
the hell
it."
just happened?
And it just went through his hands. But
yeah,
that and there was another wow throw where he just casually slid to the right, stepped up, and just flung it 65 yards.
Right. I saw that one. And that
he overthrew the guy, but still, people are like, "Whoa."
Right.
It's just different. And the play calling's different when he's in the game.
Agreed. And I do think too that that's one of the things that people really like. So much of the success of head coaches now is, and like it's been this way for a long time, but we think about the years that Bama was so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you had Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin as your coordinators. You think about when Georgia became so good. You had Todd Monken, who was incredible, and Dan Lanning as your coordinators. And now so it's like
head coach of the Browns and head coach at Oregon. Like, that's crazy.
And right. And now you think about the coordinators that are at Vanderbilt. I'm not saying they're going to be the next head coach of the Browns and Oregon, but I am saying that like they have been ahead of the curve at the hiring part of this, and getting the hiring part of this is just as important. It's probably more important than some of the guys you get from the portal, because we talk about the Jimmies and Joes all the time, but you saw firsthand last year, man, South Carolina had the Jimmies and the Joes. Like South Carolina had really good players on both sides of the ball. But when you are being held down by an offensive line coach like that and an offensive coordinator like that, it's hard to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. And it makes you appreciate when you have an elite one like Vandy has with Tim Beck.
Right.
And now South Carolina will hopefully enjoy what Kendall Briles is going to be able to do with LaNorris Sellers. And, you got Buster down at Florida. Even Mike Bobo's having some good run at Georgia.
Yeah.
I know people like to hammer him a little bit, but you got Will Stein, who's a great offensive mind. We don't know what Kentucky's going to do. His head's going to be spinning all year long. It's going to be a struggle for him. But Chris, we could probably go on for 3.5 hours.
Too, yeah.
But
what did we say? We're going to do 20 minutes?
Yeah. We've blown way past that.
I think last time we did a show, I was like, let's do like quick 24, 25 minutes. Yeah. We did 38. It was great.
Yeah. It was like, okay, 38 minutes. Here we go. Yeah, we could go on for like 3 hours talking ball, man. But we'll do this again in the summer. I'm sure it'll be ranking season, so I'm sure we'll do some general ranking stuff, and just to get some things out there. But Chris, it was fun, man. And as far as this baseball series goes, hopefully both our teams can get back on track at some point.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get back to where these two teams are supposed to be in 2027. So that's for that. But for Chris Marler, make sure you at Vern Funquist, at Vern_Funquist, that is, on social media. Make sure you check out his show, Locked On Gamecocks, and all the work he does elsewhere as well. And if he's on the Feinbaum show, make sure you hit him up and razz him a little bit. So, and I'm Corey Burton, Locked On Vandy, at Locked On Vandy, on all social media platforms, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every single day. And until next time, anchor down. Peace.
Oh, anchor down.
That's where you say Spurs up.
Yeah, I totally missed that.